What is happening, guys? A 5-minute walkthrough of defence policy, MS2. So you'll notice this is no longer the UK structure of government. There's no more name that cabinet minister or how is a bill made. This is about defence policy, integrated review, that sort of stuff. So any officer with a basic understanding of what is happening around them should be able to deliver this. The aim is for recruits to explore the future operating environment and the reality of the armed forces as they see it. And I will reiterate at this point that the target objective for you guys is to get them to communicate effectively. So you are not talking at them. They are discussing and back briefing to you. Your talk time should be minimal. The test of this is if you feel tired at the end of the lesson, you're probably talking too much. Okay, so we start with a hook. What is defense policy? Short video, Crocodile Dundee with a big knife. Hopefully that's a relatable way for the recruits to understand what defense policy is. Then we start with scenario. I find that a very good way of breaking down concepts like government and policy is through scenario-based learning. So here we have a desert island. You are in a crash, and I've put it here, the information, and then all the instructions for you to run this scenario here. So I don't need to repeat any of it. You give them 10 minutes, and the scenario rolls on. So there's after 5 minutes, you give them the second part of it, which is you discover that there are primitive tribal societies on the island, and there is also the lurking threat of a cat shark, which, as you'll see when it comes to security policy later on, is relevant because you want them to be thinking about how they assess threats and how they respond to them. So that's why that's in there. Then you go into the back brief phase, and you want them to really thrash out how they decided whether to compete or cooperate with the societies, the tribal societies, because that's relevant to MS3. Later on, and you want them to justify how they assess the threat, because that's relevant to security policy later on. But as you explain why this is relevant or how this relates to the infrastructure of government, their ideas should look something like this that's on the board at the moment. National interest, security policy, defense policy, foreign policy, which maps over almost directly to what we have in government now. And we'll break down these ideas as we go on. Okay, national interests, what are they? I think the integrated review is probably a good place to start. Global Britain, what does it mean? Let's have a little straw poll. Okay, this is our cue to open ProConnect. You press start, and then, okay, this will pop up. You get them to put in the number in their device, which I'm doing now. 6669, join. Okay, waiting for activity to start, my phone says. Participants 1, okay, I'm in. Then you click start, and then we start feeding in words here. No EU, for example. Okay. Use that as a springboard to a discussion. Then we talk about what the national security strategy says, which is that we want to protect our people, promote our prosperity, protect our global influence. How are we doing this? Let's discuss. Okay. Let's look at the American context first. That should be hidden. Okay. What is this picture telling us about power? Hard and soft power. Yep. There are two forms of power. Brilliant. Let's go on to the UK. How does that apply to the UK? Discuss, 5 minutes, go away. Okay, come back. Here's some ideas. Five Eyes, Commonwealth, special relationship, Queen, James Bond. This is looking at soft power now. We're looking at jets, hard military hardware, looking at vaccines and pharmaceuticals, research and development, foreign aid, this sorts of stuff. Give them a break. Very important that we do give them breaks. Oh, these are all deselected. Okay, now we move into security policy. Okay, discuss how do we decide what is a threat to this country. Well, the National Security Council meets regularly to do this with its cabinet ministers, and this is the framework that they use, the National Risk Register. So you can read into that there. That's what they're about to use. Share this screen with them if you wish. Get them away for 10 minutes to discuss what they think are the greatest threats of the UK, and crucially, get them to justify the impact that they think this threat has and how likely it is. Okay, there's a DS answer. It's a slightly outdated one, but it gives them a flavor of what's on the radar at the moment. Note pandemic is tier 1. So take terrorism as an example in tier 1 here. Ask them what kind of terrorism are they talking about. There are many different kinds. And how did they assess the impacts? If you look at the death count, for example, it's much lower than, say, road traffic accidents. So there's clearly a different kind of impact here, say psychological impact on the population, the sense of fear that it creates. That's the kind of detail that we need to be getting. Moving on finally to defense policy, there's a little quote there to set the flavor. Here's a video, just click on there, of a joint Russian and Chinese and Mongolian exercise amounting to about 300,000 troops, just to set the tone really and highlight the context really of the world that we operate in and the armed forces expected to compete with. Click here for a bit more information about this, because the conventional warfare that we're supposed to train for to combat Russia and China, we have to take in conjunction with other threats, say non-state, say cyber, say population threats and revolutionary movements, and the media as well. So the kind of troop capacity we need to see in this world is only going up. But the reality of the integrated review, Army 2020, Refine Everything, is that the number of troops is going down. So how do we multiply our forces and our impact to bridge this gap? To throw that question out there, get them to discuss, feedback in. Some ideas are here in the tiles that you can just lift over like this. Have a discussion around that, and then you end on this slide, which is just some more information about these force multipliers for the British Army and for the armed forces more generally, and you can click on the information bars to find out more information on each. And that really digs into the detail of the integrated review. Then we end on a quiz, and it's important that we do end on this so that we see that some learning has taken place and that we can identify any areas that they need more work. Make sure you've selected ProConnect here and you press play and the room is open.